As we continue to focus on the coronavirus pandemic here on Eyewitness News at 9, we're also focusing on your concerns and questions about the virus. Dr. David Schultz with Evansville Primary Care joins me again tonight to answer many of your questions. Dr. Schultz, thank you so much for being with us again tonight. A new study just out found that 81% of people who tested positive for COVID-19 showed no symptoms at all. That study looked at an outbreak aboard a cruise ship. That appears to be higher than earlier estimates. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Brandon, that's not much of a surprise to us. We're arguing that there's probably a lot of people out in the tri-state and also around our country who have tested positive for COVID-19 but have absolutely none or very few symptoms. And that's what makes this a very concerning type of virus, when a person can have it and not realize it. Now, that said, those individuals are not believed to be more contagious or less contagious than others. In fact, some argue they may even be less contagious than those who have symptoms, but they still are able to spread the disease. So it emphasizes that we still need to be alert for this virus. We need not let down our guard.
Yeah. Well, if someone is positive but asymptomatic, do they usually stay asymptomatic or do they develop symptoms over time?
We have had a few individuals who initially test positive or asymptomatic and then over that 2-week course develop symptoms. And we've had some individuals not to develop any symptoms until about 8 to 9, maybe even 10 days after first testing positive. Now, we are not aware of anybody exhibiting symptoms 2 or 3 months after testing positive but having no symptoms. So we think it's in a short period of time when they would start showing symptoms.
Okay. Another new study out of the University of Chicago indicates the coronavirus may never go away even with a vaccine. Could that be true, and why is that?
Well, certainly there's several things to account for that. First of all, we would have to assume that not everybody would take the vaccine. And so as long as there's a large number of people not receiving the vaccine, a virus can live indefinitely in a population. We've seen that with the swine flu, and we still occasionally find cases of swine flu. The other thing that is to comment about that is it's believed that after 1 or 2 years, our ability to have antibodies against the coronavirus will begin to wax and wane. So if we only have limited immunity to the coronavirus with a vaccine, it may be in a year or two time that we're having to either get a booster vaccine or we may be susceptible of getting coronavirus again.
Okay. Well, the CDC has updated its guidelines to emphasize the fact that the risk of close contact with someone is important to keep in mind. The CDC says that the virus does not spread easily in other ways. Now, does this mean it's easier to get the virus from being close to someone rather than touching a contaminated surface?
Well, Brandon, certainly the person-to-person contact is the most common way people are getting coronavirus. And we do believe you can still get it off of surfaces, but not nearly as likely as you would with close contacts. And the evidence of this is also seen in where we're seeing most of our coronavirus cases, and that's in nursing homes and in crowded places. So certainly the more concentrated there are people, the more likely there is to be rapid spread of coronavirus.
Okay. Well, as you know, it's warmer outside now, and many people are thinking about summer activities. What recreational activities do you think are the safest, and which ones would you recommend we avoid?
Well, definitely the large gatherings of individuals outside is where we're going to see our greatest threat of spreading coronavirus. And so we should continue some social isolation this summer. We should practice more physical distancing, and then also consider activities that would generate more respiratory secretions. So a crowded game of basketball, for example, that might be more risky for developing coronavirus than perhaps a baseball game or a tennis match.
Right. Well, what about public swimming pools? Because there's a lot of people in there at one time. Are they safe?
Well, going swimming itself is probably okay, and especially with the sunlight and the UV exposure killing off the virus. But if you consider that the public pools may be very, very crowded, it's the crowd itself that would pose the greatest danger, not necessarily the swimming pool.
Okay. Well, a lot of people are still considering taking trips to Florida later this summer. What precautions do you recommend they take while on vacation?
Well, definitely try to avoid the crowded places. So if you're at a beach and it's a very crowded, concentrated beach, I would stay away from that. And there's even some talk about the type of sand, whether it's wet sand or dry sand, causing more cases of coronavirus. But the bottom line is avoid the more crowded, congested areas. Where there's more people, there's more risk of getting coronavirus. And if you're going to Florida, wear your sunscreen.
Good advice. All right, Dr. David Schultz with Evansville Primary Care. Thanks again for joining us this week.